Hi, so welcome back, and we will be going through this very final part of the deposition of Justin Baldoni. It has been a lot. It's been quite revealing, some of it as well. Interesting. Um, I will then wait for the documents that are due to be unsealed and just deal with any, like new filings or whatever until then. Um, After I've got the unsealed documents out of the way, then I will go back and I will do Jamie Heath's deposition as well. Because, I said I was gonna read everything, so reading everything I will be. Okay, so, we seem to I got a bit frustrated at the end of, part 11 because we seem to jump from the birth scene and, like, he asked about 2 questions and then he moved straight on to the birth video, the one that Jamie Heath showed, and I was like, "But there's so many questions I have about the birth scene." And there just seemed to be no acknowledgement that, like, Lively saying, "Oh, well, I was nearly nude. I had my genitals covered by this thin piece of fabric." But there was no reference to that at all. It was just literally, um, "Did anyone ask Lively to perform the scene nude?" And he's like, "No." And then that seemed to be the end of it. It was no, "Why did Lively end up doing the scene nude? Why wasn't the set closed?" All the other things, you think of all the allegations she made about that specific incident, which was one of the worst ones that she claimed, and there didn't seem to be any, this didn't seem to be anything at all, like, no questions about, "Well, why did you do this? Is it not protocol to have a closed set? Why did you not adhere to that protocol?" And I think I'm a little bit frustrated because there's gaps. It seemed to be that Lively, um, was asked, she's saying, "Oh, someone asked me to do it nude," and then that was the end of that, like, Justin flatly denied it, and then that was the end of that. There was no the but th there was no, like, "Oh, but she did end up doing it nude," which tells me that unless they can go back to the questioning at this point, like in this video as we go further, that she didn't actually do it nude, and that was just all horseshit as usual. We will see. Okay. So we're gonna continue, right? So we're talking about the birth video, Jamie Heath's birth video, and which, by the way, Justin has also said, you know, I only asked him to show her the part after the child was born. So you're very clear about that. So this deposition was taken, I believe, before the request that Lively made for the entirety of all videos of the birth of, Natasha Heath's birth videos. So Lively already knew at this point that it was after the birth. So, it just makes me even more annoyed, really, that they requested the whole damn thing from this poor woman now who's got to share such private, intimate moment. Especially when we know what Lively's like, about keeping things that should be confidential, confidential. Anyway, so now I've got my rant out the way. Okay. Okay, Gottlieb. There's only one video that you're aware of that you've ever seen that I asked him to share, that you asked him to share with Miss Lively. Yes. And your testimony is that video begins after the point that the baby was born. I've not watched the video in years. I believe it was the birth of his daughter, and that my memory of the beginning of that video is that him and his wife Natasha and his baby are in a birthing tub surrounded by family. Do you have any knowledge, one way or the other, whether the entire event of the birth of Mr. Heath's child was filmed or put on video? I was not there. You were not there. Why is he? You were not there? I was not at the birth of his child. But do you know one way or another whether there is video of his wife giving birth? As I said, I was not there, so I would not know. And you were present when Mr. Heath showed this video to Miss Lively? Shapiro objects. I was not. Do you know one way or the other how much of the video Mr. Heath showed to Miss Lively? I have no personal knowledge of that. Do you know whether Wayfarer Studios ever described the video that Mr. Heath showed to Miss Lively as a birthing video? I don't. Do you recall testifying yesterday about some communications with Melissa, Nathan, and TAG team about a scenario planning document? Yes. And I think that was in Exhibit 16 that was introduced yesterday, and there was a document in which you were asked some questions about saying that you didn't feel that this scenario planning document, was all that impressive. Do you recall testifying to that effect? Shapiro objects. I don't recall my exact testimony from yesterday. Do you recall saying that about the scenario planning document, you thought it wasn't that impressive and you felt like they were just trying to get the gig? It sounds like that's what I said, and you're reading it, so I'm going to say yes. Do you recall testifying yesterday that you were feeling so scared and anxious that even if they had proposed to build an iron dome, you wouldn't have felt protected? I do remember that. And you testified that you were extremely worried about the gloves coming off, remember? As I think anyone would be. Yes. Okay. First of all, at the point in which you were exchanging this information about the scenario planning document, do you recall when you were exchanging back and forth communications with Miss Abel or Miss Nathan about the scenario planning document and what TAG was proposing to do? Shapiro objects. August. If I told you that Exhibit 16 had a date of August 2nd on it, would that sound right to you? Shapiro objects. I would believe you. At that point, you were not yet in New York for the press junket, right? On August 2nd, 2024. I was in Sweden, correct. The first day of the press junket was August 5th, that was right? Thank you for telling me, yes. On August 8th, you fly to Chicago, is that right? That sounds about right. So on August 2nd, there is not a lot of social media chatter about the premiere and what is happening with the premiere, right? Shapiro objects. I don't know. But the edit is done, right? The edit? Of the film, the movie's done, right? It had been done for months, yes. Posters were printed? Posters were printed, yes. The trailer's been out for months? Correct. All that is left at this point is the premiere, right? And more promotion. And the thing that you're afraid of, the storm that you see coming, is the reaction to when you and the cast don't appear at the premiere together, right? Objection. One of the things. What were you afraid people would infer when you and the cast did not appear together at the premiere? Objection. I think what I was afraid of was that I didn't know people would infer. I think the internet is a very scary place. I think that what happens is when a situation is created that I believe intentionally to leave Easter eggs, that something would be amiss so that the internet can fill the blanks. I think anything is possible. I think imaginations can run wild. I also think that at that point, that's where lies can be told. And I think all of that was very, very scary to me. Did it occur to you at this time, Mr. Baldoni, that there might be a good reason why Jenny Slate didn't want to follow you on social media and didn't want to appear alongside you at the premiere? Objection. I had a perfectly fine working relationship with Jenny Slate from the moment I was made aware that she didn't like my sexy comment about her wardrobe and all the hugs. So from that point on, Miss Slate and I never had an issue, nor discussed anything. Did it occur to you that Isabella Farah might have a reason why she didn't want to appear alongside you at the premiere? Objection. I was very confused but why Miss Farah unfollowed me and wouldn't appear. Hold on. My laptop's slowly going back up the page. Wouldn't appear with me. I had no idea. Did you ask her why? Objection. I think it was very clear that when a person publicly unfollows you and also through channels tells you they don't want you at the premiere or they won't attend, I think I took the hint that I shouldn't reach out to anybody and ask. But you didn't reach out and ask, right? I did not believe that anything I had to say could compete with any influence that Miss Lively had. Even though, in your view, all of this was based on lies. Objection. When you're dealing with arguably the most powerful couple in Hollywood, with the most powerful friends in the world, mixed with someone who's extremely charming and personable and has so much to offer, someone as young as her, by that point, there was nothing I believe I could have said to her that could affect any influence that Miss Lively had on her. So I did not even try. So it's your testimony that you believe that the reason that all of the cast members who unfollowed you and did not want to appear alongside you at the premiere, that all of them did that only because Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds had pressured them to do so? Objection. That's not my testimony. Is that what you believe? I believe prior to meeting and working with Miss Lively, I have never had anyone unfollow me or ask not to be seen in a photo with me. That's what I believe. Because you had never experienced that before, are you saying that you attribute the cause of the unfollowing and the request to not appear alongside you at the premiere? You attribute the cause of all of that to Miss Lively? Objection. That's not my testimony. Do you think your conduct on the set of It Ends With Us had anything to do with the decisions made by cast members other than Miss Lively to not want to follow you and to not appear alongside you at the premiere? What, they all happened to do it at the same time? Shapiro, objection. I'm unsure if... Can you repeat the question? This is not working for me. And the stenographer reads, do you think your conduct on the set of It Ends With Us had anything to do with the decisions made by cast members other than Miss Lively not wanting to follow you and not appearing alongside you at the premiere? Justin, I can't speculate and answer that question. You don't know what their motivations were? I think it's impossible to know what anyone's motivations is. And you didn't ask what their motivations were? I did not ask what anyone's motivations were. And notwithstanding that you were very concerned and very afraid, you did not initiate an investigation at this point in time to clear your name? Shapiro objects. I did not initiate an investigation at that time. Instead, you retained the agency group? Objection. I would not classify it as that. And you commissioned the scenario planning document to get ahead of what you thought might be coming? Objection. I just want to go back. I did not use the word instead of investigating. I just want to say that's not it. I disagree. You didn't investigate, correct? I did not investigate. You didn't talk to the cast members who had unfollowed you, correct? Correct. You didn't go out and give an interview and speak publicly where you said, I'm concerned there are misconceptions or misapprehensions about what happened on the set. You didn't do that, right? Objection. No. Instead, what you did is you asked your team to prepare a plan in the event that any information became public, right? Objection. No. Okay, 38. Exhibit 38. I will represent to you, sir, that there are two versions of the same document attached to this end. So you'll only... Is there any reason for that? That's how it was produced to us. And so in looking through this, you only need to look through the text and the first 4 pages there. So I'm not to look at the document. You can look through the text and then just... All I'm saying is you don't need to read the same document twice. Are we sure you know it's the exact same document? I'm going to represent to you that it is. Okay, but are we sure? Your lawyers can call me on that if I'm lying. Then 2 seconds later, he says, I'm wrong. It's very different. I will retract my statement and you may review the whole thing. Justin, she didn't even... Sorry. Justin, she didn't even have to call you out on it. Gottlieb, I apologize. I was mistaken. My mistake. Justin, can I borrow this pen? Sure. I'm sorry, Mr. Baldoni. I can represent to you, if you look at the text, that the only difference between the 2 documents is reflected in that second message on the text page is a correction. You mean you can represent to me what you just did? Yeah, but you were just wrong. Do you want to read the text? I'm just... Not that I don't trust you, but in the same way, I just want to read it if that's okay. Okay. Ahurian. Sorry, I would like to clarify. So these are duplicates of the... I know you've been going back and forth about that. Gottlieb. No, there's a change made. There's one change. Between this and this. There's 2 documents attached at the end. They're both attachments that are referenced in the text messages, which you will see if you follow through. And there's a description of the change that's made in the text messages. Got it. Thank you. Gottlieb. And again, This was how the document was produced to us. Understood. Mr. Baldoni, I'm going to ask you to stop your review now. You've been reading this document for 10 minutes. And I promise you I will not ask you any questions about the differences between the two versions of this. I just want you to know I just finished reading this and I felt like I was reading at a decent speed. Okay, I'm stating for the record the reason I'm asking you to stop your review now. This is a document that is a text message exchange between you, Mr. Heath, Miss Case, Miss Nathan, and others on August 2nd, 2024. Is that correct? That appears to be correct. And there are two versions of this scenario planning document that are attached to this. Is that right? That's what I'm taking yours and everyone's word for. Okay. And you recall being sent this scenario planning document, is that right? Again, I believe I do. You testified about it yesterday, feeling that it didn't provide the protection that you were looking for at the time. Is this the same version of the document that I was testifying about yesterday? Can we agree that you testified about a scenario planning document sent to you by TAG that you were unimpressed with? Shapiro objects. Yes, I just don't know if that's this one or not. Okay. Do you know as you sit here today which, if any, of the services or activities or tactics laid out in the scenario planning documents were put into motion? Shapiro objects. My understanding, based on my directives, and I believe Mr. Heath's, was that nothing was to be put into motion. We were in a completely defensive place. Did you know that alongside Jan Abel and her team, TAG, did in fact, is it Jan Abel or is it Melissa Nathan? And her team TAG did in fact manage media inquiries regarding the news on background as sources familiar? Shapiro objects. I don't know what that means. You don't know what it means to talk to the media as a source familiar? Shapiro objects. A source familiar specify, please. You don't know what it means to talk to a reporter not on the record and as an official statement, but rather saying you, reporter, can print this is what happened based on a source familiar. Shapiro objects. Being very honest, the way that you're describing it is not something that, I know they speak to reporters, that's their job in PR, but a source familiar is not something I've heard. So you know that Miss Abel and the TAG team were talking to reporters during their engagement. Miss Abel's engagement, that's her job, is to speak to reporters. Okay, so I'm asking if you know, one way or the other, whether TAG and Miss Abel were managing media inquiries regarding the news on background as sources familiar. Shapiro objects. I was not with them, and so I would have no way to know one way or the other. But did you have a view on whether you wanted them to be doing that? Objection. Yes, I did. I had a very strong view. And what was that view? I didn't want them saying anything that was negative about anyone, anybody, or anything. You didn't want them saying anything that was negative about anyone or anything, even on background. Absolutely. Even off the record. I don't know if I can be more specific than I just was. Do you know if they ever, Miss Abel and TAG, working on your behalf, said anything negative about anyone to the members of the media during this period of time in August of 2024? Objection. Again, I don't know how I would know that. Did you want TAG to be providing information to ensure that your narrative was properly represented in any and all coverage? That my narrative was properly representative in any and all coverage? The only narrative that I wanted to make sure was properly represented was my original intentions for why I wanted to make this movie. That was extremely important to me. Do you know one way or another whether TAG confirmed that outlets on intending covering the story, especially those impactful to yours, Mr. Heath's, and Wayfarer's interests, were fully briefed on the situation, including and not limited to The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline, The Wrap, New York Post, Daily Mail, etc.? Objection. I feel like I can save you a lot of questions by telling you that this was a scenario planning document that was never, from my end, given approval to execute on any level. Any piece of this document? Objection. Yes. It's your testimony that you believe that you never approved TAG or Miss Abel doing any of the things that are listed in this document? I believe we started this conversation by you saying if I remembered my testimony and that I wasn't satisfied with this document. So if I'm answering your question the way that I think you're asking it, then that would be a yes, because I did not like the document. I didn't find it to be amazing, and so there was nothing that could be approved from it. I didn't ever approve this document. You wanted Tag to do something else? I was not satisfied with this particular document. And you had a call following up on this scenario planning document with Miss Nathan and Miss Abel, right? I don't remember the specifics of the call, but I'm sure I did. Did they talk to you in that call about what it would mean to get ahead of the narrative? Not that I remember. You have no recollection of discussing with Miss Nathan or Miss Abel things that could be done to get ahead of the narrative that you were afraid might come out? Shapiro objects. My conversations with Miss Abel and Miss Nathan were very few together, and they were very, very clear that I wanted to focus on the good. Do you remember looking at a document that had a post of Hailey Bieber embedded in it from yesterday? It was Exhibit 17. I can't recall the exhibit number, but I do remember the document. And you testified that I will represent to you. Is this still? Are we done? We're done. I will represent to you that Exhibit 17 that was admitted yesterday was a text exchange with you, Miss Abel, and Miss Abel on August 5th, 2024. Do you have it? I would love to see it so I can reference it. Well, I'm going to just ask you some questions. August 5th was the start of the press junket, right? If that's the date you gave me before, then I will continue to believe you, yes. And you testified yesterday that there was a reference to friction that you and Miss Abel discussed, and that you had used the word friction in an interview that you had given, and Sony had objected to that. Do you recall that? Objection. I remember a text message where she was saying that Sony didn't like the word friction, but again, it would be easier if you would give me the document because then I can respond to it. I understand that. Do you recall the text message Miss Abel sent to you saying, Sony is having a hard time with the word friction. They think it will be taken out as clickbait. They obviously don't know about our strategy, but let's stick to the word of challenge in the role that you had as a director to get everyone to come together and be on the same page to create something beautiful. Do you remember that exchange? Yes, I do, from yesterday's deposition. You testified that that reference to friction was part of the strategy to saying only positive things and not drawing attention to the situation. Is that right? Objection. Do we have my testimony and I can just confirm that was exactly what I said? Or are you paraphrasing that? Is that consistent with your recollection? I believe so. Isn't it in fact true that the use of the word friction was itself a press strategy to get ahead of a particular narrative? Objection. I'm not sure. I feel like there's so many words you can use to describe in a positive way what was experienced. Would you be surprised to learn that Tag and Miss Abel had specifically discussed you using the word friction in order to plant a seed and get ahead of a narrative? Shapiro objects. I don't agree with the way that you are characterizing that question. Did you agree with Sony that the word friction at the time, when there was speculation in the fan community about a feud, was clickbait? Objection. I don't remember agreeing with much of anything Sony was saying during that time. Including their advice about how to market a film. I believe from day one, before I even sold the film to Sony or partnered with them, we had disagreements on how to market the film. And it is in response to that message about friction from Miss Abel that you sent Miss Abel the message, the screenshot of the Hailey Bieber thread from Twitter, right? No, it's not. No. You said it in response to what? Would you mind reading me the time of my message and the time of the Hailey Bieber message? Sure. The time of the first message from Miss Abel is 10:42 a.m. and the time of your message to Miss Abel about Hailey Bieber is 12:06 p.m. So I don't have a calculator, but could you help me with how much time is between those texts? I think you know how much time is between those texts. I genuinely don't know how much time. What is it you would like to say? Well, your question was it a response? And your testimony, I gather, is no, it was not. That is my testimony that it was not a response. Okay. What were you responding to when you said this is what we would need and you sent the text, the Twitter thread of Hailey Bieber. Objection. I don't agree with the question. I can't answer that. Sorry, my computer's slowing down. What were you sent? What were you trying to convey? No, strike that. Why did you send this text message at 12:06 p.m. to Miss Abel in which you say, this is what we would need? And the only thing you have put in the text message is a screenshot of a Twitter thread where the line at the top says, Hailey Bieber's history of bullying many people, not just Selena Gomez, throughout the years thread. Objection. That's a very long question you just asked me. Why did you send that to Miss Abel? But I can't answer the why. It was not a response. That's why I couldn't answer the question. Why did you send it to Miss Abel? Again, we were in a place of defense, and as you may have seen from many of the early text threads you've shown me, I was afraid. At this point, I felt like I was up against Goliath, and Blake Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, and everyone else in their circle, Hugh Jackman, Sean Levy, Taylor Swift. By that point, as I testified earlier, I was essentially forced or threatened to step down off my film. I wasn't able to finish my own film, even considering it tested higher. Somehow, the actress of my movie, who was not a producer, was able to take complete control of the film. By this point, Miss Lively had requested that my name be removed, so I had my film by credit removed. I was removed from the majority of the marketing materials, from the poster. I was being removed for the most part from the trailer. I know that she had been working with Taylor Swift to make sure that she got the song that she wanted in the film, and I had assumed that that was not a battle or a fight I could ever win. All of the cast had unfollowed me, which is a very public thing to do right before a movie comes out, all in unison. And at that time, I was being threatened by my agency that if I didn't release a statement, then the gloves would come off. Now, I don't know the exact sequence of the time in which I sent that text, but I will tell you that the feeling and the aura around the environment that was created, not by me at that time, created a lot of fear. I didn't know what was possible. So we were in a defensive mode because at this point I didn't know what Miss Lively or her group of powerful Hollywood elites were capable of. So I saw a text message or I saw a tweet which I did not read, and I saw that it was a celebrity woman who had a history of bullying, and I resonated with the term bullying because to me that was a true statement of what I experienced, and I felt I was being bullied. So I sent that to Miss Abel on a whim in an emotional state, but I made sure to preface it with, this is what we would need, with an emphasis and the operative word being would need. Not that we need to do this, not that I want to do this, but this is what we would need if lies were to be spread about me intentionally. And then Gottlieb, the gloves will come off conversation happened at the same time you sent this, right? Justin. So then we can imagine that conversation, it was all mixed into the same feeling, but the feeling I had was everything else that I said. You hadn't been threatened yet? Objection. I wouldn't agree with that. You mentioned having your film by credit removed? Yes. Do you know what another word for the film by credit is in Hollywood? I would love you to educate me. Have you ever heard it referenced as a vanity credit? No, that's not the film by credit. That's the executive producer is a vanity credit. Okay. Have you ever heard it referred to as a vanity credit? No. Do you understand that there is significant controversy in the industry, in your industry, over the use of the film by credit? I was not aware. Are you aware that it has been criticised by a number of directors because it conveys that all of the people who work on a film are less important than the director? Oh, for fuck's sake. Objection. I was not aware until you just said that. Did Miss Lively, was she the cause of your film by credit being removed from this movie? What was relayed to me was that Miss Lively requested it be removed. Do you know what other directors you admire and look up to with respect to the film by credit? Objection. I wouldn't know. Would you want to have a credit that's known as the vanity credit be something you saw on a film written by Colleen Hoover? The film was not written by Colleen Hoover. He's wrong there. With the screenplay, a woman's screenplay. Oh, With the screenplay, screenplay written by a woman with many women act on it, would you want a credit that's known as the vanity credit attached to your name? Objection. Until you brought it up right now, this was the first I'd ever heard of it. You never thought to ask? Objection. I'm not sure how I can ask about something I don't know about. Did Miss Lively remove you from the trailer? What was related to me was that she was attempting to. Who had the approval authority over the trailer? What do you mean exactly? Who had approval authority over the trailer that was released? Who was in charge? I believe Miss Lively. You believe Blake Lively had the approval authority over the final trailer that was released for the film It Ends With Us? From my understanding, in many ways, that's what she claimed in her letter to the Producers Guild of America. Did you ever ask Sony's president why your film by credit was removed? Sony's president relayed to Jamie, it's my understanding, or it could have been Ange, why my film by credit was removed. Did you ever confirm with anyone who actually made the decision about the final composition of the trailer? Objection. I was having some conversations with Ange Giannetti and some of the people involved in the trailer. Did you do a promotional event at the release, upon the release of the trailer? I did. Was Miss Lively there? She was not. Was Colleen Hoover there? Yes. Was there a floral pop-up shop? I believe there was. Did you make bouquets? With Miss Hoover, I did. You and Miss Hoover made bouquets. I believe that's what I just said. For influencers and fans? It was a pop-up shop for influencers and fans, correct. Can I get a time check, please? And can we go off the record? Okay. So they go off the record for quite some time, actually. Half an hour. Okay. So they come on back on the record. The time is 7:05 p.m. Shapiro, I just want to note for the record that we've now been going for 13 hours and 35 minutes with Mr. Baldoni. We took a break that was supposed to be 15 minutes. It has now been almost half an hour. We're all very tired. The witness is extremely tired, and this is unacceptable. Gottlieb noted. Did you record the January 4th, 2024 meeting? Can you ask one more time? Did you record the January 4th, 2024 meeting that happened in Miss Lively's apartment? No. Did Mr. Heath? I'm aware of any such recording. Are you aware of anyone on your team having recorded that meeting? Mr. Heath is the only person on my team that was at the meeting. Okay. So I guess, to answer your question, no. This is Exhibit 39. This is a document that was Exhibit 18 from yesterday and what we were searching for before we went back on the record here. Okay. And so you testified about this exhibit yesterday. We've marked it as Exhibit 39 for everyone's convenience because we don't have the exhibits from yesterday here with us. So Exhibit 39 is a text chain that you testified about yesterday between you, Miss Nathan, Miss Abel, the three of you, on August 15th, 2024. Do you recall testifying about this text chain yesterday? I believe I do. And in this text chain on the 15th of August, you were talking about how Mr. Sauritz had asked you about flipping the narrative from this leak, this AM, about Ryan saying script was a disaster and he saved the movie. Do you see that? If it's okay, I know how I testified yesterday, but I'm just going to read it very quickly, then I can answer all your questions. Okay, thank you. Exhibit 18 from yesterday and Exhibit 39 from today is an exchange on the 15th of August between you, Miss Nathan, and Miss Abel. Yes. And you talk about something Mr. Sauritz had said to you earlier. Flipping the narrative from the leak this AM about Ryan saying script was a disaster and he saved the movie. Yes. And I think you testified that you were unsure what the basis of the belief that Ryan had said the script was a disaster and saved the movie is. Is that right? What I'm saying here, if I read my words, is from this leak this AM, so some sort of leak that morning to an article. Do you know whether Mr. Reynolds himself had ever said publicly that the script was a disaster and that he saved the movie? I don't think I could know. Do you know whether he had ever said that privately? I don't think I could know that. So you don't know whether the statement attributed to Mr. Reynolds was actually made by him at any point in time. I don't think it's possible that I could know that. Do you know the point in time at which Mr. Reynolds was alleged to have worked on or saved the script according to what you were responding to here? Objection. What I know is that during the premiere, Miss Lively, for some reason, offered up the fact that her husband wrote what is arguably one of the top 5 most important scenes in the film, and I believe this appeared to be PR that was trying to justify or calm the backlash that was caused by Miss Lively's own words. And in response to that, you suggested on the next page, over at 2 o'clock, page marked 15408, the fact that they saved the script from what they think is a disaster after we had a greenlit script and was a strike basically implies they were scabs. Do you see that? Yes. And you said, which we should 100% lead them to. Do you see that? I do. You were writing during the strike, were you not? I was. So you were a scab. I would have no problem being called a scab. And what you wanted to do was lead reporters to the fact that, in response to this source statement, what they really should be printing is that Mr. Reynolds and Miss Lively were scabs. Shapiro objects. No. Knowing that you had written during the strike? Objection. I'm sorry, I just said no. I'm going to ask my questions. Is that a different question? Shapiro, please. Gottlieb, you've answered no. Shapiro, counsel. Gottlieb, and the next question is, you knew that you had written during the strike, correct? Yes. And you knew that Wayfarer had asked people who are comfortable to come out to work during the strike, is that right? Come on. Like every other production, correct. Did you want reporters to know that? I was not hiding that. Is being called a scab a positive or negative implication in your view? I'm not sure I can answer that. But you wanted reporters to go in that direction, right? Objection. What I believe I was doing was passing on a message from my partner Steve, who relayed to me after reading a story that appeared to be in response from something Miss Lively said on her own. She was not even asked about whether or not her husband wrote a scene, and then because of that, received a lot of negative backlash, as did Mr. Reynolds. Because why would Mr. Reynolds be a WGA writer writing a scene in someone's movie that he's not credited for? And so Steve, seeing Mr. Reynolds' apparent leak that the script was a disaster, which seemed like he was trying to save his own image in that moment, asked me to pass on to Melissa and Jen, that an idea could be presented which would be flipping this narrative that our movie was a disaster to begin with. And this again was purely a defensive conversation. There was an offensive move done to say that our script was originally a disaster, and we were implying that this could happen. We did not say, go and do it. I don't, unless you have something where I did. You characterize these as offensive and defensive, yet you have admitted you have absolutely no idea whether Mr. Reynolds ever said that the movie was a disaster that he saved. Shapiro, objection. Untrue. I do know he said it. You know that he said that the movie was a disaster that he saved? Yes. Okay. And you know that how? He said it at the January 4th meeting, in person to my face. And did he say that in public at any time that you ever heard him say that? I found it odd that something he said to me in a very angry, aggressive tone at a meeting in front of my partners and my best friend somehow magically appeared in the press during a time when there was supposed to be a truce, as soon as his wife, Mrs. Lively, made him look really bad on her own. It's awfully convenient that you remember that right now, isn't it, Mr. Baldoni? Shapiro objects. You did bring up a lot of things for me to remember over this, and did you? Yes, I did just remember. I did remember just now. Did you ever communicate in writing to anyone at any time about the January 4th meeting that Mr. Reynolds said that? Shapiro objects. There was a lot of things Mr. Reynolds said that I never shared with anybody outside my wife, as it was extremely humiliating, embarrassing, and traumatic to me. Do you recall when you learned that Mr. Reynolds had blocked or unfollowed you on social media? Are you looking for the exact date? Because I do not have that. Estimate? No, I remember the feeling. Do you remember what month it was in? July or August, I'm assuming. If I were to if I told you that you learned about in May of 2024, would that surprise you? Objection. It wouldn't surprise me. That entire time period is a big mess. Do you recall ever sending content to your digital team to boost or amplify? Yeah, I do. Do you know how the digital team, who is the digital team? I have no idea. I knew there was a digital team. I assumed it was the people that we had hired from Tag. Do you know what it meant? Did you understand what it meant for them to boost or amplify content that you were sending to them? Technically, no, but I remember at the time assuming that it meant the word boost is like if I'm going to give my son a boost, I'm going to help him up. So to boost. As you sit here today, you don't have an understanding of how that team went about boosting or amplifying the content you sent for them to boost. I don't. Do you have any recollection as you sit here today about the number of pieces of content you sent through to the digital team while they were engaged to boost or amplify? Shapiro objects. I don't. Do you believe that the digital team you retained didn't do any actual work? Objection. Do I believe that they didn't actually boost or amplify? I have no idea. You don't know what they did? I have no idea if they actually did what or boosted what we asked them to boost. Do you know how much Wayfarer Studios ultimately paid Street Relations for its work? I don't. Would it surprise you to learn that Wayfarer Studios paid Street Relations approximately $100,000 for its work? And then Joel Glover, who is Jed Wallace's and Street's attorney, objects. Form. Shapiro objects. I don't think that would surprise me. Do you think Mr. Heath would spend $100,000 of Wayfarer's money paying for a vendor that did nothing? Shapiro objects, so does Glover. I can't speculate as to what Mr. Heath would do or would not do with $100,000. What was your share of the profits derived from the film It Ends With Us? I believe we had a back-end deal of around, I don't know all the plus, minus costs and all that stuff, but I think the number was around 10%. Do you know how much you received in total compensation, roughly? You received in all forms of payment from the film It Ends With Us? To date, I don't know. Do you have any estimate of the amount? To date? To date. I would guess somewhere between 3 and 5 million. Do you think your total share of compensation, well, let me put it this way. Were you paid as director a fee or an amount? Yes. Were you paid as an actor a fee or an amount? Very small amount, yes. And then you had some share of profits in an agreement that was with Wayfarer Studios or It Ends With Us. I don't have a share of profits that I'm aware of based on any agreement. What do you have a share of profits based on? Objection. To my knowledge, I have ownership stake in the entire company. And so the amount of money that you have made off the film is derived from a combination of what you were paid as director, what you were paid as an actor, and your ownership interest in the company. False. Please correct me. I do not pay myself for my ownership interest in the company. You are entitled to a share of profits from the company, but you have elected not to take it. Is that what you're saying? Mr. Sauritz and I have a different agreement than that. What is your agreement? What is your different agreement with Sauritz? That I do not take, or we do not take any percentage that isn't, the studio has not returned a profit. So taking anything from that is not profitable, would be taken from the studio. So while the success of the film is amazing, the studio did not make money. Sorry, I'm just lost, but yeah, it did not take any money. Mr. Sauritz has invested, to my knowledge, over 100 million, and that's nowhere near the amount of profit we made on It Ends With Us. So I have not taken, nor will I take any share of that. Is there documentation that memorializes what you just said to me? I don't believe so. Is there documentation that would show the payments that you have received, if any, derived from the film It Ends With Us? Of course. Have you produced those to us? My lawyers have everything that would need to be produced, so I would assume that if that was something that would need to be produced, that they would produce it. Do you recall telling us in an interrogatory response that you first anticipated litigation about ends with us in August of 2024? I don't remember, but I'm assuming that's correct. Did you understand after that point in time that you were required to preserve all documents concerning the litigation that you anticipated? No. When did you understand that? I believe this last week. This last week is the first time that you understood that you were required to preserve documents in this case. Yes, but I preserve them anyways. What steps did you take to preserve your documents, if any, in August of 2024? By not deleting anything. Okay, so you didn't delete anything. Did you have any understanding of the retention policies that existed on your email account? Can you be more specific? Do you have any knowledge as you sit here today, one way or the other, whether the email accounts that you use have retention policies on them? Shapiro objects. Retention meaning like they stay or they don't stay? They stay or they get deleted after a period of time? I always have on all my emails that they never delete. Do you use a Wayfarer Studios email address? That's one of my emails, yes. And do you know for a fact that that email account, the retention policy is set to never delete? I believe I intentionally make sure that it never deletes because I always go back and look for emails. Did you talk to somebody at Wayfarer Studios about setting that policy for your Gmail? I believe I did. All Gmail, all my personal emails, everything, nothing deletes. How about WhatsApp? I have all my WhatsApps, they don't delete. You don't have any chains in WhatsApp that have an auto delete timer on them? I don't think I was aware that WhatsApp had that function. How about Signal? Signal, what about it? Are all of your chats in Signal set to retain indefinitely? They are now. I thought you testified yesterday that certain of your Signal chats were set to retain indefinitely and certain were not. Yeah, but then I wanted to make sure that they were all set to retain indefinitely. So, is it your testimony that the chats that you mentioned with your friends, not with your lawyers and your co-defendants, but chats that you have on Signal with your friends are set to be preserved indefinitely? Yes, it should be. What about your handwritten notes that you've taken in notebooks? Well, they're not going to be set to auto-delete. Objection. What about them? Did you take any steps to go and search through them to find responsive ones to give to your attorneys? I did. I produced them. And those have all been produced to us to the best of your knowledge? Yes. Okay. Do you recall when you instructed your social media team to start posting you only talking about domestic violence in clips? Shapiro objects. I don't remember the date. I will represent to you that this text is from August 8th, 2024 at 3:30 p.m. Okay. And you've written, "Hey, just landed. What is the TikTok strategy? I'd like you guys to start posting me only talking about domestic violence in clips and why this movie is so important." Does that sound like a text you would have written? It does. Do you know why you were sending that instruction at 3:30 on August 8th, 2024? Because I felt like that's what I wanted. Do you know where you had just landed from? I don't. Do you recall flying around the 8th of August to Chicago with Mr. Heath and Miss Abel and others in New York? I do. Is it possible that you had just landed from that flight from New York to Chicago when you sent this message to your team? Objection. It's entirely possible. Do you recall following up with the team in a conversation about the content that you wanted posted on your social media feeds from this point forward? I don't remember a specific follow-up conversation. Do you recall changing your profile? Objection. I do. And putting a link to know more in your profile? Objection. Yes, I do. We're on the last page now, thank God. And you don't have any memory, as you sit here today, about why it was at that moment on the 8th of August that you made the decision to do that? Objection. Specifically at that moment, I don't. Why didn't you do that at the start of the press junket? Objection. I think at the start of the press junket, I had extreme anxiety because I was not welcome at my own film premiere. And I think that I was in fight or flight. And if I'm honest about some of those things, I don't think I was thinking about PR strategy. I was thinking about survival. Do you recall asking anyone from your team around this time to go through your private DMs to look for messages? Yes. Do you recall asking them to specifically look for messages from survivors? Yes. Do you recall asking them to read and respond to some of those messages on your behalf? Yes. Did that happen? Yes. Does that mean, Mr. Baldoni, that strike that? Do you know if messages were sent from your social media accounts to whoever was sending you messages? I had asked nomore.org. Specifically, I had asked to employ a survivor who was sensitive to this topic because I was receiving so many messages from survivors who were sharing very personal, deep, traumatic things. Survivors are reaching out to me and saying that they need help leaving their abuser, and I didn't feel I was qualified to answer. And I couldn't sleep at night, knowing that I might ignore a message from a woman who could die if I didn't respond. And one of my goals and missions that you have shown me today is that I did believe this movie, as lofty as it sounds, could save a life. And so I asked no more. We employed a survivor, and her job for weeks was just to go through my DMs and respond to women who needed help, men who were also sharing their stories, and make sure that they felt seen and were able to get the help that they deserved and needed. I was not qualified for that task. I appreciate that, Mr. Baldoni. My only question for you is whether, in sending those responses, did those responses come from your own social media account? They did, as those responses were in response to things that came, like people were pouring their hearts out to me. Do you know whether those responses disclosed that you were not the one that was reading and responding to the messages? I don't. And then Shapiro asks, how much time is left? Gottlieb says, you don't need to ask, I'm done. Shapiro says, good. And that's the end of it. All 14 hours, which we managed to get into 12 hours of video, which included quite a bit of my ranting, by the way, all done and dusted. So that's Justin Baldoni's deposition testimony, transcript, all done in full. And that was so much to go through. So now we know that he did not go back to the birth scene, and I'm really curious. I feel like there was not enough drilling down of the specific, like acts per se. It was all about things that had happened to Justin Baldoni decades ago, what other people were thinking, what other people were doing. It was a lot more focused on reputation, like, well, why would you say this about Ryan Reynolds? Why would you want to flip the narrative when you don't know that it was his narrative? Which is not a totally unfair question, and I understand why he's asking that, but the sexual harassment, it was still missing from this. It was more about Jenny Slate. It was more about Alex Sachs. Can someone point to me, right? Anyone who's listened to all 12 of these episodes, can anyone just point to me the part where they went into detail about the sexual harassment that Blake Lively is alleging, other than the, your onesie is sexy crap? Because I didn't hear it. I just did not hear it. Where's all the improvised kissing? Where's the improvised sex scenes? Where's the gratuitous, nudity? It's all missing. It's all missing. Where's the, oh, we didn't have an intimacy coordinator. I didn't hear it. All I heard was about how uncomfortable that Justin Baldoni had allegedly made Alex Sachs and Jenny Slate. And I have been quite frank in my views of that. But this is Blake Lively's deposition. No, it's Blake Lively's attorney doing a deposition against Blake Lively's alleged harasser/abuser. Where were all the allegations, the questions about the allegations, specifically for the harassment of Blake Lively? Did not hear them. Right, I am really gonna I'm gonna leave it here now because I could really go off on a tangent as I often do. Um, I keep forgetting to ask this in the videos, but if anyone could, who hasn't already, like the videos, subscribe to the channel, if hype is available. I think it's not down to me on what videos hype is available. So, if it's available, it's available. If it's not, then that's fine. It is set to be on, but all of these things they do help out my channel. And like I say, if you've got any questions, please do leave them in the comments. I will always respond, unless I don't see it. Like if I respond and then someone follows up with a response, I don't always get a notification about that, but I always respond to people where I can, even if it's just with a reaction. Um, and I know that there's enough people who have been following me long enough now who know that I do that. Always happy to answer a question, and if I don't know the answer, I will actually go and find out, and I will not respond until I come back and I have an answer. And please do keep an eye out for the videos I do when all of the stuff is unsealed. There will be hours of work in that. Not that this hasn't been hours of work. But we will get through all of that too. And then I will come back and I will do a series similar for Jamie Heath's deposition. But thank you very much to everyone who has taken the time to watch these videos, to like the videos, and leave comments. I really appreciate your time. So thank you so much for doing that and being so supportive.